Now, if you are walking down the street, especially in a crowded city, and you think someone's following you, then what you do is you turn around 180 and go back the direction you came, acting like you forgot something or you missed something and you need to get it back or go in a different direction. Then let the person that you think is following you go past, and then do another 180 like, oh, no, I didn't forget anything. Oh, I did take the right way, etc. And notice if that person turns around and wants to follow you. That'll give you a clue as to whether the person himself forgot things twice or whether you're actually being followed. It works very well, actually. You can also do this with a car. If you think a car is tailing you, turn around the block and go around the block, and then turn around another block and go around another block, and see if the car follows you that way. Don't just keep going in a straight line if you think you're being followed or tailed or whatever you call it. Now, you can usually tell a tourist by how uncertain they are. They're kind of looking around and not certain about themselves. I was in LaGuardia Airport years ago, and I had one 24-hour free period, and I had an Austrian coat on, and I had a backpack, and I walked up to two policemen and I said, I'm a tourist and I have 24 hours to see downtown Manhattan. Any advice? They looked at me up and down, glanced at each other up and down, and said, try to look like you live here. And then they rolled their eyes and they walked off. Well, before that evening was over, yep, I had a gentleman following me. It became very obvious, and he went ahead of me down the stairs, down an escalator, and I stopped at the top, and I had this coat on, and I saw him. He turned around, he looked at me, and he couldn't miss the fact that I was watching him. So he just looked at me, and I put my hand in my pocket, my coat pocket, and I just looked at him. I just stared at him with my hand in my coat pocket, and I kind of smiled. And he looked at me for probably 5, 6, 7 seconds, and then he just kind of smiled and shrugged and turned and walked off. No, I had nothing in my coat pocket, but he didn't know that. How did I do that? You need to show confidence when you're in unfamiliar surroundings. You need to let people think you know where you're going, you know when you're going to get there, you know who you're going to meet, and everything's on track. So they don't think, oh, this is an easy target because he's kind of lost. Don't let people see that you're lost. Even if you're lost, walk into a store and start talking to someone as if you're not lost. Looking like you're confident makes you look less vulnerable. This makes attackers more cautious, and it makes you more aware of what's going on around you. Don't get paranoid. Don't get paranoid, okay? Space rules. Every culture has a different definition of space. An American has a certain distance where they'll stand away from someone. They won't get real close. Whereas a European tends to stand much closer when they're talking to someone. When we first got to Austria, we went to a party, and my wife told me later she laughed because this gentleman came up to talk to me, and he had a cigarette, and he was smoking, and he was about that far away from my face. And I backed up a little bit, and he stepped forward, and I backed up, and he stepped forward, and he actually backed me all the way across the room, and I wasn't aware of it. As we got more familiar with the culture, I realized that if I wanted a little bit more space than the typical European wanted to give me, then all I had to do was lean forward a little bit, and they would back up. And then I just stood where I was in the beginning, and I had a little bit more space. We're not always conscious of that. When someone's coming down the sidewalk, ask yourself in your culture, how close do they need to get before you feel obligated to say hi? Not a mile away, not a block away, but someplace in that block, your culture is going to say to you, you need to say hi, you need to welcome them. If you don't, you're rude, because you violated the protocol for being friendly within a certain space. So, as you notice people around you, notice people that you believe are getting a little bit too close for your comfort. They may be meaningless, but notice it. And in another culture, start noticing how close or far apart friends stand with each other, acquaintances stand with each other, and non-acquaintances stand with each other. Two people who first meet will usually greet one another in some way, shake hands or bow, but notice the space between them and how they maintain that space until they've talked a little bit and either become, quote, acquaintances or friends. Learn the space rules of your new culture. And if you do see someone who looks like they may be getting a little bit too close for your comfort, notice their hands. Don't stare, but just notice their hands. Do they have anything in their hand that would look like a weapon? Are their hands clenched in fists? Do you sense any kind of physical body language of anger or violence? Notice it, then run. Do they have any bulges under their coat here? Well, it's probably not a rabbit. They're probably not a magician. It's probably some sort of a weapon. And so just back away and just notice that. And if you conclude, yeah, they're moving a little bit too close to me and I see some of those signs, then increase the distance, get what do you think is a safe distance, and then reevaluate the situation. And get out if you need to get out, or get close to some other friends if they're there. If not, just leave. It's probably not advisable to walk right up to them and say, "Hi, I notice you're following me. Is that a gun under your arm? And can we shake hands?" You probably don't want to do that. Now, you might ask me, how come I could think about that thing in the stairway in New York where the guy was looking at me and I put my hand in my pocket? And that's really easy to answer. I visualize those kind of things. I visualize what would happen if a guy is looking at me too much, how do I respond? If a person starts to get too close, how would I respond? What are my options? And I visualize them. I think through. This is an intentional thought process. Again, I'm not paranoid. I'm just building my own safety net around me in this culture without being obvious about it. Don't be obvious. Just consciously think about doing these things. Increase your awareness. Not necessarily your body movement or your body language, but just your awareness. And then last, before you actually cross a culture, I want to ask you to read a book. It's called The Gift of Fear. It's been put into 16 languages. And the premise of the book is we have built-in fears that are good. They're there to protect us, and we need to at least listen to them when they pop up. Not run away screaming, something's going to happen bad, but why am I nervous about that situation? Listen to that. Please read the book. It's an excellent book, and it'll guide you through how not to make very simple mistakes. And I will say that probably 90% of all threats are preventable if we'll just increase our awareness of what's going on around us through the eyes and through the ears. Okay, we've covered the basics of safety at home and increasing your awareness. Now we're going to cross a culture, and we're going to talk about the general principles of building a safety net when you cross a culture. Doing the same things in another culture that you learn to do in this video in your home culture. Hope you enjoyed this. I still enjoy making these. I'm jealous. I wish I could be doing what I'm telling you to do. You're going to have the adventure of your lifetime. You really are. Okay, see you in the next video.